My boyfriend was diagnosed with severe depression 6 months ago. One time he cried and told me he couldn't pick himself up to prevent him from doing something extreme. I worked hard to earn money. I hoped to cure his illness. As a result, during a social gathering, I was sent to the hospital for excessive drinking. When I woke up, I found that he was already gone. I was worried something had happened to him, enduring the discomfort in my stomach. I forced myself to get up and look around. Unexpectedly, I saw my boyfriend passionately kissing his psychologist. The woman held his shoulders tightly. He was completely different from his usual serious self. "Liam, how long do you plan to deceive that woman before letting go?" She looked at him seductively. Her fingers gently glided over the man's sensitive areas. She whispered, "Don't make yourself too uncomfortable, just wait a little longer." I was pale-faced. It turns out he was not serious. He was just lying to me. I called my boss, feeling down. I accepted the company's arrangement for a transfer. Since that's the case, then I'll just leave. After hanging up the phone, I came back. I didn't expect that the couple in the booth was still going on. Liam's jacket had already been thrown aside. He was wearing a clean white shirt. It made his figure appear slim and fit. The outlines of his muscles were faintly visible. I couldn't help but smile wryly. It was so obvious, but in these past 6 months, I actually never doubted whether his depression was real. The woman was being held by Liam, feeling weak all over. She was almost entirely leaning on him. She gently leaned closer to Liam. Her hand slowly reached for his shirt button. Liam looked down and slightly gasped, completely different from his usual depressed appearance. He slowly lifted her chin. His eyes were filled with desire. Dr. Harper said with a smile, "You're quite capable, aren't you?" Harper's lips curled slightly. She revealed a charming smile. She responded, "If I weren't capable, how could I cure you, this patient? So even in the hospital, you don't forget to attract my attention. Emily has been working hard to treat you. She even ended up with a gastric hemorrhage. She must do something, right?" Upon hearing these words, I turned pale. I held back my tears. One hand pressed against my recently washed stomach. I forced a bitter smile. I didn't expect that the things I did for Liam would actually be taken as a flirtatious joke by them. Liam chuckled softly. "Emily is different from you. You always have so many excuses." Harper smiled gently. She lowered her head to unfasten the man's chain. She said, "I'm a psychologist, you know? I'm very good at reading people. If it weren't for these reasons, how can I let you, Liam, comfortably stay with me in this unnoticed little storage room?" "That's it." Her hand moved gently. The man immediately let out a low gasp. He gripped her hand even more tightly. The veins on his hand were clearly visible. "You really are a little tease," Liam said softly. "You kneel down, hurry up. I've been on the verge of losing it lately." I blinked. My tears couldn't help but flow down. It felt like my heart was being cut with a knife. Liam was in front of me. He has always been a calm and gentle person. A few times, I purposely wore a beautiful dress. I sat on his lap. He always looked at me helplessly. He said gently, "Be a good girl." Okay, I didn't expect that. He would have such a reaction too. I felt very sad inside. I didn't want to watch anymore, just as I was about to leave, but I saw Harper did not kneel. Instead, she reached for Liam's collar. She pulled out a black and white striped scarf. That was a gift I once gave to Liam. He particularly liked it. He wore it almost every time he put on a shirt and suit. Liam looked at the scarf. He gently frowned. He said, "Don't touch that scarf." Harper raised an eyebrow. "Did Emily give this to you? Isn't that more suited to her?" With a sweet and soft voice, with a slight elongated tone, a hint of conflict flashed in Liam's eyes. Then he silently watched as Harper covered his eyes with the scarf and tied it behind his ears. Groping, she knelt down. The man's gaze suddenly froze. The hesitation on his face was replaced by intense desire. My eyes turned red. A wave of unprecedented disgust surged in my heart. Just yesterday, I was still thinking about marrying Liam once he recovered. I didn't expect things to change so quickly. The man who once promised to spend his life with me. Actually, he left 6 months ago, after returning to the ward. I picked up my phone again to call my boss. "Boss, I want to apply for a transfer to work out of town as soon as possible. Are you sure? The company hopes you can go directly next week. It's just that considering you might." I'm feeling very confused. For the first time, I interrupted my boss directly. "Then let's do it next week. I've made my decision." The boss was stunned. Because I had always been reluctant before. In the past, I definitely wouldn't have agreed. No one wants to be separated from their loved one. But now, it was Liam who made the decision first. after Liam came back. He had already put on his suit again. The silk scarf was gone. I glanced at him lightly. I didn't say a word. Yet my reaction made him a bit nervous. Come closer to me. The voice was low and gentle. Emily, you finally woke up. You scared me last night. I was so worried. If something happened to you, I wouldn't want to live anymore. He lowered his head. His expression was heavy. In the past, during times like this, I would do everything to cheer him up. But now I just feel exhausted. I don't even want to say an extra word. At this moment, my attending physician arrived. Liam hurried over to ask about my condition. Although the doctor said some unpleasant things, he wasn't angry at all. He even opened a memo and wrote down the doctor's words. In the end, the doctor saw his sincere attitude, and his tone softened a bit. Your girlfriend can't drink like this anymore. As her boyfriend, you need to care more about her. Take good care of her. He nodded seriously. He walked over and took my hand. He said apologetically, I'm sorry, Emily, it's all my fault, if it weren't for making money for my treatment. I looked at him coldly. No response. Liam saw me like this. He seemed a bit anxious. He stepped forward, wanting to hug me. At that moment, I caught a faint scent. This scent seemed to have appeared on him since he was diagnosed with severe depression. It would occasionally show up around him, if I'm guessing correctly. This is probably Harper's perfume. I immediately felt extremely nauseous. I suddenly pushed him away. I felt that just his touch made me feel unclean. Liam was startled by my action. His face turned pale. He asked me with a worried expression, Emily, what's wrong with you? Does your stomach hurt again? A few minutes ago, he was very excited at Harper's place. Now you're putting on a deeply emotional front in front of me again. I really didn't expect that. Liam has this side to him too. It seems I still don't know enough about him. I naively thought he only loved me. I shook my head. I softly told him it's okay. It doesn't hurt anymore. Only then did he feel at ease. Then he looked at me with red eyes with a hint of complaint. He said, Emily, you pushed me really hard just now. Is it because of my depression that you're starting to dislike me? I shook my head. I helplessly said no. I understand. He's pretending to be depressed again. This time, I won't feel sorry for him anymore, and I won't comfort him anymore. The doctor said I can be discharged. Let's go home first. Liam nodded. Enthusiastically, he said, Emily, you wait for me here. I'll come pick you up and take you home once I'm done. He gently patted my head. His eyes were filled with care. 20 minutes later, Liam called. He hesitated on the phone. Apologetically, he said, Emily, I'm really sorry. There's an urgent matter at the company. I have to rush over to handle it. You should go home by yourself first. Is that okay? I'll come back later to make you something delicious. I calmly agreed. The man hung up the phone. He didn't know. At that moment, I was standing at the hospital entrance. I watched him get into Harper's car with my own eyes. Time and time again, I witnessed these things. My heart had already hurt to the point of feeling numb. I took a deep breath and told myself, Emily, you can get through this. Just consider it a farewell for the last week with him. From now on, we will never meet again in the afternoon. Liam was carrying the fresh vegetables he just bought. He looked at me with a face full of apology. Emily, I'm sorry. I forgot that you still can't eat these. I was too anxious today. I stirred the light plain porridge I cooked in the bowl. I couldn't help but laugh at this. How could he not be anxious? He was eager to find Harper. Liam hurriedly put the fresh groceries into the kitchen. Then he came out and hugged me. Emily, you need to understand. I really didn't mean to. He sat beside me, leaning on my shoulder. I noticed you haven't said much since you woke up. I'm really worried about you. Emily, what's been going on with you lately? I shook my head. I looked at him with an innocent face. It's nothing. Liam, you're overthinking again. Liam looked at me. His eyes seemed a bit distracted. Then he reached out to pull me. Maybe my illness has relapsed. Emily, I have to go for a follow-up appointment with the psychiatrist the day after tomorrow. I nodded slightly, but I felt particularly uncomfortable inside. I really wanted to shake off his hand immediately. We just met and came back. He was eager to meet again. I didn't expect him to be so impatient when I saw Harper again. I noticed at a glance. The scarf I gave to Liam was carelessly thrown in the corner of the office. Although it's not particularly eye-catching, it was just visible enough. Liam, in a place I wasn't paying attention to, coldly glanced at Harper, seeing that I seemed not to have noticed. Only then did he relax. Harper wore a professional smile, leading Liam into the treatment room. Each therapy session takes 2 hours. No need to think too much. I also know what they'll be doing in there. I expressionlessly picked up that scarf, Since Liam doesn't cherish it, then I'll just take it back. After the treatment, Liam's complexion does look much better. Harper and Liam came out. The two immediately noticed that the scarf in the corner was missing. Are you looking for this scarf? I looked at them. A faint smile appeared on my face. It might have been left here by Liam. I picked it up for him when I saw it. Liam stood there in a daze. His face turned pale. Harper was the first to snap back to reality. She nodded with a smile. She explained calmly, "Oh, right. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten." She glanced at Liam and said, "This is the one Liam left here last time." Liam ignored her. He reached out his hand to me, wanting to take the scarf back. He seemed worried that I wouldn't return it to him. It's already dirty. Suddenly, his expression became even more aggrieved, as if I had said something particularly hurtful. I chuckled softly and added a line. "Next time, I'll buy you a new one." Harper saw Liam's reaction. A hint of displeasure flashed across her face. She looked very jealous until we left. Liam didn't glance at her again. Another day passed. I noticed that Liam has been particularly keen on following me these past 2 days. Every 2 hours, he asks me when I'm returning his scarf. Tonight, I had just lain down. Liam came over. "Emily, I love you. Do you love me?" I almost laughed out loud. He has no feelings for me at all. Yet he keeps saying he loves me. I held back my discomfort and asked him back, "Liam, you want to?" The man's body suddenly stiffened. He stood still. After quite a while, he finally spoke with that familiar, helpless tone. "I'm sorry, Emily. My illness, it might not be healed yet, so." I withdrew my hand. I turned around, facing away from him. "Then let's sleep." Liam lay behind me. There was a hint of apology in his tone. "Emily, haven't you always wanted to eat my barbecue? In a couple of days, let's invite a few friends. Let's have a barbecue together. I also have a surprise prepared for you. We don't have many mutual friends in this city. Only 2 or 3. Plus, I'm leaving in 2 days. I think it would be nice to get together." Seeing that I agreed, Liam looked a bit happy at that moment. His phone rang once. He opened his phone in front of me and said to me, "It's a message from Harper. She asked me if she could come over." I looked at him in silence. After he finished speaking, he quickly walked over to hug me, with an anxious expression on her face. She hurriedly explained, "Emily, don't misunderstand. I mentioned this casually while treating her the day before yesterday." She expressed interest after hearing that. He paused for a moment, then continued, "I was thinking, she was my attending physician for half a year. She is quite familiar with us." I lowered my head, interrupted him without any particular reaction. "Since she wants to come, then let her come. It's fine. Anyway, it really doesn't matter." That day, I was holding a designer dress that Liam said was a surprise, clearly not in my size. This was a dress I had long desired but never bought, just as my friends were in shock when Liam was at a loss. Harper, who was next to me, spoke first. She looked at me with disdain, with a smug smile on her face. "Oh dear, this size was chosen by Liam. It might be a bit too big. Emily has a slimmer figure. This dress is more suitable for someone with a fuller figure." She intentionally looked at herself. The meaning is quite obvious. I didn't expect that. In front of friends, she didn't hide it at all. This is going to be stated plainly. Liam looked at me with a complicated expression. "Go ahead, Emily." Me, I let out a cold laugh without waiting for him to finish. I threw the dress to Harper, coldly said, "Since it fits you, then it's yours. I don't want it anymore. I don't want the dress, and I don't want Liam anymore." At this moment, Liam suddenly pushed Harper away forcefully and snatched the dress. His voice trembled. "No way, Liam, let's break up." The man stopped his actions. He looked at me in surprise. I took out the scarf I got back from Harper a few days ago. Without hesitation, I threw it into the charcoal fire. I said coldly, "Since you don't cherish it, don't blame me." The man suddenly burst into tears. He didn't care that there were people around. He stumbled over and ran towards me. "Emily, are you joking with me? Don't say that. I'm really scared." I couldn't hold it anymore. I raised my hand and slapped him. "Liam, I know your depression is just an act. Can you stop pretending now that I see him? I only feel nauseous. I will never care for him like before." He listened to my words. His face instantly turned pale. He hurriedly wanted to come and hug me, as if worried that I would leave immediately. "Emily, you already know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Can you forgive me? The more I think about it, the angrier I get." I couldn't help but slap him again. His face turned red immediately. I took a step back. My voice became somewhat choked. "Liam, you keep saying you love me. How can you be with another woman? Do you really love me?" That's all I have to say. The The man was suddenly stunned. His eyes showed panic and confusion. His voice became particularly soft. You know about it too, at this moment. Harper also walked over. She excitedly wanted to pull Liam. Liam, did you hear that? She wants to break up with you. We can finally get away. The man was very strong. Harper was pushed down to the ground in an instant. She looked at him in surprise. She said, "You actually pushed me." Her eyes were red. Say it with grievances. Liam, how could you push me? Liam didn't even look at Harper. He was eager to explain to me. Harper was crying loudly beside us. Liam's explanation was hesitant. I felt annoyed listening to him. I interrupted directly. "Stop. I don't want to hear your explanation." I glanced at the time. "It's time to go to the airport." I stared at Liam calmly. I said firmly, "Let's not meet again in the future." As I was leaving, Liam was still kneeling there. I left without looking back. 3 hours later, I arrived in a city more than 2,000 kilometers away from Liam. It was already 10 o'clock at night. I had just exited the airport, and I saw the car my boss had arranged to pick me up. I walked over quickly. I said apologetically, "I'm really sorry to trouble you, letting you take me so late." The other person got out of the car, calmly took the luggage from my hands. I was taken aback for a moment. "This person looks a bit familiar. We'll be colleagues from now on. What should I call you?" He finally looked up at me. He took a long time to respond. Ryan, I nodded. I was just about to sit in the passenger seat. Suddenly, I realized, something's not right. Isn't Ryan the chairman's son who was transferred to headquarters? The chairman's son is actually here to pick me up. How could I have this kind of luck? Why are you still standing there? The man frowned, thinking to himself, "This is bad." He looked even more like the chairman with his stern face. I smiled and confirmed again. "You said your name is Ryan." The other party was taken aback. It seemed like he was both annoyed and amused. He crossed his arms, looking down at me from above. "What else could it be, How could you personally come to pick me up?" The man stared at me for quite a while. He raised an eyebrow slightly. He said in a somewhat vague tone, "Of course, it's on the way." Could it be that he has a crush on you? I was momentarily speechless. I thought to myself that I was really asking a redundant question. Well, how about I drive instead? You take a break. Facing such a big shot, I still consciously made a suggestion. "You don't know the way. You still have to rely on the navigation. Don't bother." All right, in front of Ryan. I always sit up straight. My mind is highly focused, this way. I actually didn't have time to think about the breakup. I secretly glanced at the legendary little Ryan, wondering whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, because my boss just told me, from now on, my direct supervisor will be Ryan. "Emily, what are you looking at, little?" Ryan suddenly turned his head, just in time to meet my secret glance at him. I was taken aback for a moment. I immediately felt nervous. His aura is really too strong. Later, I didn't dare to look at him again. The accommodation arranged by the company is a small one-bedroom apartment. The space is not too big, not too small, just right. The view from the living room window is a patch of lush green trees. I really like it. In the following days, I was busy getting familiar with the new department's work. I also had to handle the projects handed over by the previous director. I was busy every day, except for occasionally waking up at midnight thinking about Liam. I rarely thought of that person anymore. Just like that, a week passed. Noon, Ryan and I were about to go for lunch. Afterwards, we had to meet a client we had an appointment with to discuss a project. As soon as we walked out of the company gate, I saw Liam not far away. I asked him, "Do you know him?" Ryan's tone was calm, but my brows furrowed slightly. I looked coldly at Liam. I shook my head lightly. "I don't know him." Ryan seemed quite satisfied with this answer. There was still a hint of a smile in his eyes. He probably didn't want anyone causing trouble at his company. I was anxious to pull him away quickly, fearing that Liam would see me. Unfortunately, I was still a step too late. Liam saw me from a distance. He immediately ran towards me. "Emily." By the time I came to my senses, he had already reached me. I hadn't had the chance to speak yet. Ryan calmly said next to me, "Emily said she doesn't know you." Only then did Liam realize. Ryan was still standing next to me. His expression suddenly became a bit distorted, yet he asked me in an almost pleading tone, "Emily, who is he?" "That's none of your business." I furrowed my brows tightly. My face was filled with impatience. Maybe my dislike is too obvious. Liam looked at me with a pale face. His eyes instantly turned red. "How can it not concern me? You are my girlfriend, and will be my wife in the future." I let out a cold laugh. I looked at him displeased. If you feel unwell, go see a doctor. We are done. But Liam seemed to have lost his mind. He shook his head desperately. No, I disagree. As long as I don't agree, you can't leave. He approached me again. It seemed like he was going to rush over and hug me. At that moment, Ryan, who was standing next to me, darkened his expression. He directly punched him. Liam was knocked to the ground by a strong force. She clearly stated that she doesn't know you. Sir, if you continue like this, I will call the police. Liam was enraged by Ryan's words. His eyes were red as he stared at Ryan. His emotions were almost out of control. No, how could Emily not know me? She loves me so much. He climbed right in front of me. I coldly pushed his hand away. I turned around to leave. Liam, I no longer love you. I already found out about you and Harper. That was when I stopped loving you. Please be mindful of your behavior. Liam's eyes immediately dimmed. Just like when he used to act with me, he still shook his head in pain. He muttered softly to himself, I don't believe it. How could you possibly not love me anymore? You used to love me so much. You would even give up your life for me. So how can you not love me now? I maintained a cold expression. I immediately called the security at the company. Then I pulled Ryan away. Sorry about that. Little Ryan. I let go of Ryan's sleeve. I glanced at his fist with some regret. I noticed it was a bit red. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Didn't you say you didn't know him? In my heart, an ex-boyfriend is no different from a stranger. Upon hearing this answer, he nodded and asked, I don't like him anymore. I looked at him. Didn't expect someone like him, a big boss, to be so curious about others' affairs. He helplessly nodded. Say it? Yes, he betrayed me. Don't ask anymore. Okay, Ryan had no reaction. He didn't make fun of me either. He took a few quick steps ahead. Say it, all right. You're treating for lunch today. Why, it's nothing. I helped you teach that unreliable man a lesson. The man's tone suddenly became relaxed. In the next 2 days, Liam didn't leave. I could occasionally see him around the company. He didn't bother me like last time. I pretended not to see him either. No matter what he does, I'm never looking back again. Today, Ryan knows that I haven't left. He insists on taking me home. I just arrived in this city. I'm not familiar with the place. The only person I know is my boss. I didn't expect that. He actually insists on taking me home. He's worried I might be in danger. I suddenly remembered. When I first came here, it was also him who came to pick me up. Thank you, little Ryan. Do you want to come up and sit for a while? One of the top 10 illusions in the world. I feel like he has a special interest in me. Unknowingly, I started to have the idea of testing him. Just then, Liam suddenly rushed out angrily from the side. He raised his hand to hit Ryan. Ryan expressionlessly reached out to block him. He directly grabbed the opponent's wrist. I said in surprise, Liam, what's wrong with you? Liam's face turned red with anger. He stared fiercely at Ryan. Don't think about getting close to Emily. She can only be mine. I couldn't help but frown. I looked at him with disgust. It turns out Liam has been hoping I would change my mind and rekindle our old relationship. He really has thick skin. Liam, I have said it before. I no longer love you. Did you even seriously listen to what I said? You have no right to control who I associate with, and no right to dictate who I get close to. Just leave my life. Is that so hard to understand? I really laughed because of him. Don't think I will forget what you did behind my back. Those things with Harper. I was foolishly working hard to earn money. I have never been able to let it go. My sincere efforts have become a joke between you two. The scarf I carefully selected, only to be used by you to mock me. Liam, my greatest tolerance is that I haven't taken extreme measures against you. How can you still expect me to continue loving you? My words are like nails. One by one, I nailed Liam to the wall of regret. He lowered his head. The pain made him tremble even while breathing. Just then, Harper suddenly appeared. I originally thought Liam was crying so sadly because he had already broken up with Harper, but I didn't expect that. He wanted both this and that. Harper was still wearing his jacket. Let go of Liam. You're hurting him. She hurriedly ran over, trying to pull Ryan's hand away. Ryan frowned. He quickly let go before she could touch him. Harper showed a concerned expression. She was about to reach out to support the swaying Liam, but was suddenly pushed away by Liam, fell to the ground. Liam shouted angrily, "Get away, don't touch me, I hate you." Liam looked at me, eager to explain. It was her who took the initiative. Emily, you have to believe me. It's her own fault for not knowing her limits. She has been bothering me. Harper heard this. She was stunned. Her face instantly turned pale. How could you say that about me? Liam, you're so heartless. You clearly enjoyed it just now. You haven't finished speaking. Liam suddenly grabbed her chin. He said with a gloomy expression, "Shut up." Harper was rendered speechless by the grip. She just stared blankly at the hostile Liam before her. She felt utterly confused inside. This man once loved her the most. He always said she was charming. But now it's all for Emily. He mercilessly insulted her as worthless. I calmly watched this scene, staring directly into Liam's eyes. I said calmly, "Liam, you are really disappointing. You can't let go of how I've treated you. And you are still infatuated with the freshness Harper brings you. You are too selfish. If you still feel a bit guilty, then don't let me see you again." After a while, the man trembled and sighed. He knelt directly in front of me. "I'm sorry. Emily, I'm really sorry. It's my fault. I lost you. Forgive me, please." Liam was still frantically apologizing. Harper stood by, with tears streaming down. I didn't want to hear anymore, so Ryan pulled me away. He kept holding my hand. Even when we got downstairs, he didn't let go. "You didn't ask me if I wanted to go up and sit for a while." Ryan stared at me. His eyes held a complex emotion. After quite a while, he finally continued speaking. I said yes. My heart suddenly tightened. I originally thought, after leaving Liam, I might not feel this racing heartbeat for a long time. It's like there's a little deer running around in my heart. It makes me dizzy, this feeling. It only slowly faded after I handed him a glass of ice water. The man raised an eyebrow slightly. "It's only 9 degrees today. You gave me this." I was taken aback. I didn't know how to respond. I suddenly felt a bit regretful. I thought calling him up was a bit impulsive and inconsiderate. He took the water from my hand and placed it on the coffee table. Then he looked at me. He asked, "Emily, you really don't remember me?" I was a bit surprised. I had met Ryan before. No wonder I felt a bit familiar. "But I really can't recall," he said coldly. "I knew it would be like this. Little Ryan. Give me a hint." I smiled, trying to play it off. "Think for yourself." Since then, it was as if there was a layer of paper between Ryan and me. We both knew it well. We continued to work as usual. He still had lunch with me, and he still took me home at night. Until tonight, I was discussing a project with a client. The two of them hit it off. Before I knew it, I had drunk too much. At 10 o'clock at night, I saw Ryan walking towards me. I was a bit unsteady on my feet. I suddenly fell onto him. A wave of familiarity surged in my mind. I remembered. That was the first month after Liam was diagnosed with depression. To earn a little more money, I had been negotiating with a particularly difficult client for a long time. The day I finally signed the contract, I was extremely happy. That night, I accidentally bumped into someone at the bathroom door. "Oh, it's you." I smiled and looked at him. Ryan looked at me in surprise. He asked, "You remembered?" I nodded. Yes, I remembered. At that time, I accidentally bumped into Ryan. As a result, he slipped. We both fell down. We were face to face. Our lips accidentally touched. "That's how you remembered me." His ears turned a bit red. He said softly, "That was my first kiss. Since then, the barrier between Ryan and me was finally broken." Another month passed. Liam appeared in front of me again. "It's been a month since we last met. He has lost quite a bit of weight." He managed to smile at me. He handed me a box. "Emily, the dress you used to like very much. I bought another one this time. I'm sure I won't buy the wrong one." I couldn't help but laugh, looking at him with contempt. "Do you have a problem or something? I already made it very clear last time. Things that I like, I'll buy it myself." I just finished saying that. Then I heard familiar footsteps behind me. Ryan walked over. He put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Things that my girlfriend likes. Of course, I will buy them for her. Do you have a bit of a problem?" I couldn't help but laugh out loud. I pretended to hit Ryan lightly. This was originally an unintentional action. But to Liam, it seemed like I was deliberately trying to act close in front of him. He looked at me in surprise. "Emily, are you really together with him?" What else could it be? I noticed him staring at the hickey on my neck. That was from Ryan yesterday. I raised an eyebrow slightly. I asked, "You don't think this strawberry mark is from a mosquito bite, do you?" He swayed to one side. The box in his hand fell to the ground. Things were scattered everywhere. He shook his head. His face was filled with shock. He looked like he could barely hold himself together. I looked at him coldly. I spoke the last sentence I would ever say to him. "My world doesn't need you. I hate you." The man's head hung low. It seemed like my words weighed him down so much he couldn't lift his head. He was wearing an old white shirt, but now that shirt only highlighted his emaciated frame. He was so thin that a gust of wind could blow him away. Half a year had passed. I slowly found my footing at the headquarters. I sat steadily in the director's position. I became Ryan's most trusted assistant. During this time, I even followed Ryan home to meet his parents. Just when I was about to take Ryan to meet my family, the phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I didn't think much of it, so I answered the call. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then they started to speak. I immediately recognized that voice. "Harper, don't hang up yet." The tone on the other end was somewhat urgent. I remained silent. No response. I really didn't know what to say to Harper. She continued speaking. "Liam is suffering from severe depression. This time, it's real." I blinked. "Say it." "Oh, what does this have to do with me?" Harper was silent for a moment. There was a hint of pleading in her voice. He misses you very much. Can you come back to see him? He is currently exhibiting strong suicidal tendencies. I'm very worried about him." I closed my eyes and said firmly, "No." Before hanging up the phone, I still couldn't help it. I added one more thing. "Harper, you really are foolish to the point of being heart-wrenching. Who were you on the phone with just now?" Ryan was carrying a big bag of gifts. He asked me nervously. I couldn't help but laugh. "Don't worry, it's not my parents, really. It was just a scam call. Let's go." 2 years have passed. Ryan and I had a very grand wedding. This is his unique romantic style. As for Liam, I haven't thought about him in a long time.